Tell us about your first week in Hull.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. The weather's been awesome. Getting to know some of the players and the staff. Trying to initially set some systems and structures in place. Meeting a couple of supporters has been a highlight as well. So it's been a great first week.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, we'll come to the fans in a little while. But what have you made of the club? You know, the surroundings, the ground, etc.
Yeah, it's a fantastic ground. Obviously some of the facilities probably aren't what they are or that I've been used to, but they're all still decent, good facilities, and I'm really looking forward to working here.
Mm-hmm. And you've met the staff as well. What did you make of that?
Yeah, the staff have been great. We're just working through a couple of little things to see, exactly who the backroom staff will be. But everyone's been pleasant and very nice, and I couldn't be happier, Charlie.
Mm-hmm. It's always seen as like a family club. Do you feel that yourself?
Yeah, definitely. People have been really accommodating, going out of their way to doing things that they wouldn't do back home. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And have you been able to see much of the city?
I have been actually, because the club let me a car, and I've been driving around and seeing the history, the heritage, the architecture of some of those places in town. It's pretty special, because in Australia there's none of that, and I think my family are going to really love that side of it.
Has anything stood out more than anything else?
Not really. I'm just loving the old, the architecture and the history, and seeing all those quaint buildings that you drive by, and those kind of things that, as I said, nothing like that back home.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's important, feeling at home, because this will be your home for the next 2 years at least.
Yeah, it will be, definitely. So, as soon as I find a house, Charlie, that's the first thing on the agenda, to really, establish a base and a house for me to live in. And I said I couldn't be happier. It reminds me a little bit of Newcastle in terms of, the ground, the facilities, the people that live here. It's a really good place.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, because Clint Newton said the same to me a couple of years ago when he first arrived here about the similarities with Newcastle. You touched on the fans. Share your experiences that you've had so far.
Yeah, Charlie, I was driving to Craven Park for the first time, and I got completely lost, didn't know where I was, so I just pulled outside a carpet shop, and I was yelling out the window to the bloke there, if he knew where Craven Park was, and he came over and asked if I was a new head coach, and I told him I was, and the first thing he said to me, well, you better beat those...
keep it clean.
I'll keep the swear words out, but you better beat those Hull FC people. And then he proceeded to ask me if he wanted to jump in and show me where Craven Park was. So very, very helpful, mm-hmm. but made it very clear how important it was to beat Hull FC.
Yeah, rugby league is very important in this particular area, if you're red and white or black and white. Have you shared that passion with the fans?
Yeah, certainly, and I'm just glad I'm a Rovers man. That's all I can say, because having their support, and I'm led to believe that stand on the far side is you got to see it to believe it. So that I'm really looking forward to that on the first home game.
Mm-hmm. See it and hear it. They are quite loud. Yep,
even better. Louder the better, as far as I'm concerned. And if you can maybe persuade the referee to give us a couple of more penalties than we deserve, then I'm all for it.
Now, the Rovers fans that you've talked about, they've experienced playoff rugby the last 3 years. Their expectation levels will be pretty high. Are you ready for those?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we're going to sit down and set some goals, and obviously top 8 will be part of those goals.
Mm-hmm. And Justin Morgan obviously had a great record in the derbies. It would be nice to continue that as well for the fans.
It would be fantastic to continue that for the fans, and I hope we can deliver it for them.
Once you get a feel of the fans, I'm sure there'll be a sense from yourself that you can't let those fans down, because they are so passionate. Is that something that you share?
Yeah, definitely. They pay their hard-earned money to come and support their team, and the least we can do as a team is to play at our best and most consistent every week for them.
Mm-hmm. The directors, what sort of a target have they set you so far in the 2 years initially?
Yeah, there's no specific targets. For me, it's all about improving players individually and then improving the team. And that's all I'm after, improving the team and get them to the level of them playing their best rugby every single week.
There's a sense as well that perhaps last year, maybe the year before, that Rovers seemed to stall after progression the previous 3 years. How do you plan to kickstart things at Rovers?
Yeah, well, basically, any new coaching staff that comes to a club, they're going to do things their way, which, is going to be different than what it was done. So we're just going to train hard and we're going to really work on our skill level and hopefully, the players will adapt to that and come out feeling fresh and ready to go for the first round.
When you go back to Australia later on this week, what will your thoughts and impressions be of the city and of the club?
Yeah, no, very happy. It's obviously, for me, it's vindicating my decision to sign here. Obviously, I'd never been to Hull before. I had never been to Craven Park before either. So it's really vindicating my decision, and I'm so glad I did sign here now because I've really enjoyed this week, and I'm looking forward to getting back over. I wish I didn't have to go home. I wish I could just stay here and get stuck in Norton.
You've had a bit of time to think about your coaching philosophy for next season. What sort of a coach do you think you'll be?
Yeah, we'll see what happens at pre-season training. I'll have a good look at each of the boys, and I'm led to believe it does get a little bit cold and snowy here. So our game plan and the way we play the game, might change depending on the weather conditions, as well.
What will your focus be for pre-season?
Yeah, focus of the pre-season is obviously going to be training hard. Looking at the stats, obviously our defence needs to improve. So that's definitely one area that we're going to spend probably more time than not on.
What qualities will you bring as a coach?
Yeah, I just want to bring education to the players. I just want to improve them, and I want to make them better players and better people. So when I eventually leave Rovers, I'll leave them in good shape, and there's some systems and structures in place that can take Rovers forward.
Can we expect big changes to the way that Rovers play?
Well, you can expect changes. I wouldn't say big, but there will be definitely changes, and hopefully the supporters and yourself, Charlie, will notice those and be able to come up to me after the first few games and notice a bit of a difference.
What about preparations for games? Have you spoken to the players about how they prepared for things last year?
Yeah, not really. That'll happen during the course of pre-season. I've obviously got my thoughts on how they should prepare. So I'll be chatting to each of the individuals and discussing that same thing, Charlie.
Have you managed to get through all the DVDs from last season?
Yeah, I've only got through 8. I thought the 24 hours getting over here I'd get through more, but I got through 8 because I ended up doing what every coach does, every try, freeze frame, forward, back, and so I actually took a lot more than I thought to get through them.
Any issues that have sprung out that have concerned you from watching the videos that you have?
Yeah, but probably, some of our defence probably wasn't good enough, and the boys probably will be the first to admit that. That and just playing consistent rugby for 80 minutes is probably the two things that we really need to do if we want to, improve.
And on the flip side, has there been things that have pleased you and impressed you?
Yeah, some of the tries they scored, fantastic. Some of the skill level on the long-range tries was absolutely outstanding. So there's definitely a lot of good potential there.
You mentioned in your press conference that when you do leave this job, which hopefully won't be for a few years, you want to sort of see an English coach replace you. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I just want to see the game progress here as much as it can, and if I can educate an Englishman to be able to do a head coach's job, I personally, me personally, Charlie, that's probably what I'd like to do.
Leave a lasting legacy.
Yeah, not necessarily lasting legacy, but just leave enough that an Englishman could come, and do the job that an Aussie can do.
You've had time to assess the squad, and you've met a few of the players already. How did that go?
Yeah, it went well. I'm meeting the rest of them today and tomorrow, but they've all been set some targets for. So when they come back on the 7th of November, they are to meet some minimum requirements, and then we'll go from there.
Who do you see as being the key players for next season?
Yeah, it's hard to identify individuals at the moment because I don't know them that well. But obviously, the halves are pretty important to us to stay fit and healthy. And there's a few good young kids I've seen on the tapes as well that I would hope would kick on to that next level.
How important is it that the two halfbacks, Blake Green and Michael Dobson, have secured their future for the next 2-3 years, the length of time you'll be here anyway? Yeah,
that's fantastic for me as a coach to know they'll be here for the long term, because then we can build a team around those boys.
Obviously you came across with a great track record in developing young players. How important will that be next season?
Yeah, it's very important for me. It's something I'm passionate about, and it's something that I need to put in place at Rovers, a good junior structure. I want every kid in Hull, and every kid in particular East Hull, to have a pathway to play for Rovers, and that's the goal.
Have you met any of them so far?
No, I haven't met any of them yet, but I have met some of the junior coaches and discussed with them the importance of educating their players to the best of their ability, and setting up a few coach education courses and just those type of things to really amp up the junior development.
One thing over the last 4 or 5 years has been the fact that Rovers and Justin Morgan has given the young players a chance. How difficult is that to bring in the young players, as well as getting the results that are all important?
Yeah, it's a balancing act. As long as there's some experience in your squad, Charlie, you can afford to blood a couple of youngsters here and there. But basically, the fans want to see the first team win. They want to see the best players on that park. Now, I don't care if the best players are all 19 years of age, or in the case of Adam McDougall at Newcastle, I don't care if they're 36 years of age. They just want to see the best players playing every week, and that's my job.
Are you confident you can bring through more young players?
Yeah, I'm very happy with the young players that are here, Charlie, and I'm confident that they can kick on to the next level.
It was touched upon again in the press conference about bringing players over from the NRL. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's obviously every squad you need to look at your strengths and weaknesses, and there's a couple of areas there that at the moment we can't fill, so that's where we'll look at the NRL, and if we need to bring 1 or 2 players over, then I believe we can and will.
So you'll be speaking to players when you go back?
I'm in constant contact with the players I've got in mind now, but obviously there's quota issues, Charlie, there's salary cap issues, so nothing's obviously set in concrete yet, but there are quite a few players that I've been in constant contact with that would love to come and play for Rovers.
We mentioned Shannon McDonald as maybe one who will be coming over. Anything in that?
Yeah, no, Shannon's been listed with about half a dozen people that I speak to on a regular basis, so nothing in that at the moment.
And obviously you mentioned about a warm weather training camp as well. Can you tell us anything about that? When it will be? Where?
Yeah, probably be towards Christmas. I think we're talking Spain, one of those beautiful areas around there, so I'm not sure, but the players won't be enjoying it, let me tell you that right now.
And how important is that?
I think it's vitally important because we're going to be playing a different style of rugby, so it's important the players be able to train on a dry track to the best of their ability, because there will be some new structures, plays, systems put in place that we need to nail down, and we can't afford to be doing that on a frozen pitch.
And I guess, as I said to you on the phone call a couple of weeks ago about Rovers' poor starts the last 2 seasons, this will help avoid that, surely, wouldn't it?
Well, it'll help us be in a position to avoid that. There's no guarantees in rugby. I've learned that for a long time, but it'll certainly help us to go where we want to go.